Have you ever stopped to think about the price you are willing to pay for a dream? Is your ambition capable of withstanding the weight of the most difficult choices? At some point, we all face a devastating question. What would you be willing to lose to achieve what you want most? When you close your eyes and imagine what you want most, do you feel that spark? That heat that starts deep in your chest and grows, as if something is waiting to explode? Now imagine that this spark could be the best thing that ever happened in your life, or the worst. After all, how far would you go to make your dreams come true? This is not a story of easy achievements. It's a journey where ambition is both a flame and a trap, and it all starts with a choice: respond or ignore the dream's call. It's subtle, almost shy, like the distant sound of music you can't ignore. At first, it's just a thought that appears in moments of distraction, but over time, it grows. It becomes an impossible desire to silence. And here comes the dilemma. Is it safe to follow this path? Is it worth leaving everything behind? This restlessness consumes. Every moment feels like a reminder that you are not living fully. And while many choose comfort, that predictable job, the controlled days, others feel something different, an urgency, a hunger for something greater, something that no one around seems to fully understand. And if you're among these people, you know exactly what it's like. Standing still is not an option. But dreams have a peculiar way of testing us. They don't ask for permission. They arrive without promising anything and demand everything. This is where the first big question arises. What are you willing to risk? Think about it. How many times have you heard someone say they had potential for something great, but they never got around to it? Maybe you felt this fear yourself, the doubt between safety and the unknown. Because the unknown is scary, isn't it? What if it fails? What if the sacrifice is greater than you expected? But here's a hard truth. Staying in the same place also has a price. There is a story about a climber that fascinates me. He had a clear dream: to climb the highest mountain in the world. It didn't matter how much it cost. While others stood still, weighing the risks, he was already training. Each step was more difficult than the last, every breath shallower. At the top, he felt something indescribable, the taste of victory. But as he looked around, he realized he was alone. The dream took him higher than he ever imagined, but along the way, he lost something he could never get back. So I ask you, what if you reach the top and discover that you left essential parts of yourself along the way? So I ask you, what if you reach the top and discover that you left essential parts of yourself along the way? So I ask you, what if you reach the top and discover that you left essential parts of yourself along the way? This is where the real conflict begins. Responding to the dream's call is like lighting a match in a dry field. It illuminates, heats, but can also burn everything around. And even so, whoever hears the call knows they cannot ignore it. Do you choose the comfort of a predictable life or take a risk on a journey where the end is uncertain? This choice defines who you are, because in the end, it's not people with easy dreams who change the world. They are those who face fear, losses, and still move forward. And so I ask, are you willing to take the first step? This is the beginning of your journey, and in the end you will discover something much bigger than the dream itself. You will discover who you really are. Great achievements require sacrifices. This is what we are told in inspiring stories, in the biographies of the winners, in the speeches of those who achieved the impossible. But what they rarely say is what happens when the price is too high. What happens when, in the heat of the journey, you lose track of what you are leaving behind. And now think, do you really know how much your dream is worth? When we imagine a big goal, we see the prize, the glory, the happy ending. But the path to getting there is made up of choices, and each choice carries weight. At first it seems simple. Work a little more, sleep a little less, giving up a weekend here, a meeting with friends there. But one day, you realize you're alone in a dark room, surrounded by everything you've sacrificed. Your health, your peace, maybe even the people you loved, all in the name of that dream. And then an insidious doubt arises, is it worth continuing? Nietzsche said that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. It's a powerful but dangerous phrase, because sometimes we think we have a big why, when in reality we are chasing shadows, goals that are not really ours. How many times have you seen someone trade precious moments for something that, in the end, made no sense? A perfect career, an enviable life on Instagram, or the most expensive car in the garage. And when the dust settles, these people ask themselves, who was I doing this for? So I ask you, if the price of the dream is all you have, do you still want to pay? There is something fascinating in the story of someone who pursues the impossible, the fine line between determination and obsession. Determination is the fuel that moves mountains, but the obsession? She is the force that consumes, corrodes, and destroys everything in her path. And that's where we find Griffith, a man who had a clear dream and an unwavering desire to achieve it. He didn't just want to live, he wanted to be remembered, to engrave his name in eternity. For Griffith, the dream justified everything. He used the people around him as tools, loyal but disposable. He believed his destiny was too great to be stopped by emotional ties. And for a while it worked. He led, won, inspired. But like all uncontrolled ambition, the dream began to demand more than he could give. The moment Griffith saw his obsession put to the test, his most loyal companion, Guts, decided to leave him. The loss was like a chink in Griffith's armor. And that's when he got lost. Instead of rethinking his steps, he quickened his pace towards the abyss, because for Griffith, giving up on his dream was worse than losing everything. And now a question resonates: how far would you go to protect your dream? The price of a dream can be your freedom, your sanity, or even your humanity. But when you cross that line, what's left? What do you find on the other side? What if, to achieve what you want most, you needed to destroy everything and everyone you love? Would you be able to? Ambition, when uncontrolled, is like a hurricane. It begins as an inspiring breeze, but soon turns into a devastating force, tearing everything out of its way. Griffith, consumed by his dream of greatness, has reached the point of no return. He didn't just want to win, he wanted to be absolute. And when you want something so badly, what you're willing to sacrifice becomes a matter of time, not choice. Griffith had already lost so much: your body, your position, your dignity. Everything he had built, an empire of victories and loyal followers, had been destroyed after his capture. He, who was once the guiding light of so many, was reduced to the shadow of a man. But deep within his ruin, something remained: his dream. This dream kept him alive, but it also consumed him inside. When the opportunity arose to get it back, Griffith was faced with the darkest decision of his life. He was offered a pact: sacrifice his own comrades, those who gave everything for him, in exchange for absolute power. And here comes the question that haunts us: how far would you go to get back what you lost? The sacrifice scene is a cruel mirror of human obsession. On one hand, Griffith had the weight of his losses. On the other, the promise of everything you ever wanted. And he chose. He sacrificed his friends, not just friends, but the people who believed in him when no one else did. People who fought for him, who saw him as a leader, a lighthouse in the darkness. The act wasn't just a betrayal. It was a brutal demonstration of how a dream can transform a man. Griffith was no longer human. He had become the very reflection of his inordinate ambition. Griffith achieved the power he so desired. He became a god among men, but at the cost of everything that made him human. Your humanity, your connections, your essence were left behind on the altar of your ambition. And here's the real conflict: did he really win? Because in the end, what he achieved was empty. The kingdom he ruled was built on ashes. He became a legend, yes, but at what price? Perhaps Griffith's story seems extreme, but it carries a universal truth. How many times have you ignored warning signs in the name of a goal? How many times have you left people behind because you believed success was worth any sacrifice? But here's the most important question: is it worth it? What Griffith didn't realize, and what many of us forget, is that dreams are only half the journey. The other half is who we become as we pursue them. And if we get lost along the way, does the achievement really matter? And you? Have you ever sacrificed something important for a goal? How far are you willing to go? Have you ever wondered what the limit of obsession is? When does the dream stop being inspiration and become a prison? Griffith achieved absolute power. He accomplished what seemed impossible. He transformed himself into a divine figure, ruler of a kingdom that existed only in his most ambitious imagination. But as he looked at his throne, the inevitable question resounded: who is he now? Griffith's downfall didn't begin with the sacrifice of his allies. It began much earlier, the moment he allowed his dream to become bigger than himself. And with that, he teaches us a bitter lesson. When a dream consumes everything, it stops being a lighthouse and becomes a cell. Griffith had everything he ever wanted: power, glory, control. But he no longer had the voices that inspired him, the faces that drove him. He had traded true relationships for symbols of his greatness. The price was greater than any victory could justify. And here is the central question: what do you gain when you lose everything that defines you? There is something tragic about seeing someone who could have been a great leader turn into a tyrant of himself. Griffith not only destroyed those around him, but destroyed his very essence. He was charismatic, brilliant, a force that moved crowds, but in the end his strength was redirected to fuel his obsession. How many times do we also do this on a smaller scale? We ignore who we are in the present, believing that the future will bring all the answers. We close our eyes to small sacrifices, thinking that the reward will justify the pain. But what if the future is not what we hope? What if, like Griffith, we reach the top and discover we've lost what really mattered? Griffith wasn't the first to fall into this trap, and he certainly won't be the last. Big dreams have the power to build or destroy. They challenge our limits and force us to make difficult choices. But therein lies the secret. The power is not just in achieving the dream, but in knowing how far to go without losing yourself. And here comes a reflection that is uncomfortable but necessary. Do we, in pursuing our goals, become the villains of our own story? What makes Griffith such a fascinating figure is that he represents something we all face at some point. A moment when we need to decide, move forward at any cost or stop to reflect on what really matters. Griffith didn't stop. He ignored the signs, the losses, and continued to dig a chasm between what he was and what he wanted to be. But this isn't just about him. It's about all of us, about our daily choices, about the small betrayals we commit against ourselves and others. Because in the end, Griffith reminds us of something terrible. A dream is worthless if it costs your humanity. And you? Have you ever wondered where your ambition ends and your obsession begins? Are you willing to sacrifice everything, or can you find a balance before it's too late? If the price of your dream is all you have, would you still pursue it? Griffith's story brings us to an inevitable point: the need for balance. He achieved everything he wanted, but in the end, he became a prisoner of his own ambition, and it forces us to face an uncomfortable truth. Big dreams aren't just about achieving a goal, but about the person you become in the process. But what if there was another way, one that didn't require losing everything that defines us? Dreaming is essential. It's what moves us, what makes us get up in the morning with the belief that tomorrow can be better. But a dream without purpose is like navigating without a map. You might get somewhere, but you run the risk of getting lost along the way. Griffith had a dream, but he never stopped to question its true meaning. He was obsessed with the idea of being remembered, of building something eternal. But did he know because did you want this? Could it be that deep down, the kingdom he sought so much was just a way to fill a void he was never able to face? And us? How many times do we pursue something without really understanding why? We work to the point of exhaustion, we sacrifice relationships, we ignore our health, all for a goal that in the end might not even really be ours. Here is the truth that Griffith ignored. Purpose is what turns the dream into something meaningful. Without it, what remains is an empty search. One of Griffith's biggest mistakes, and many of us, was believing that giving up or changing one's path was a sign of failure. He didn't know how to stop. He didn't know how to look at the ruins around him and admit that perhaps the price was too high. But the ability to adapt is what differentiates a dream that elevates from an obsession that destroys. Sometimes changing course doesn't mean giving up, but preserving what matters. It means accepting that success doesn't always look like what we first imagined. How many success stories started with failures? How many inventors, artists, leaders have had to reevaluate their goals before achieving something truly great? The difference is that they didn't let their ego dominate the journey. They knew how to stop, reevaluate, and when necessary, start again. What Griffith never managed to understand is that true success is not in achieving something alone, but in growing together with the people around you. He sacrificed everything in the name of a dream that, ironically, completely isolated him. But what if he had chosen differently? What if, instead of seeing his companions as tools, he saw them as partners on the journey? What if, instead of chasing greatness at any cost, he had found a balance between his ambition and his humanity? These questions cannot change Griffith's fate, but they can change ours. We have reached the crucial point. What is the cost of your dream? Are you pursuing something that really matters, or just following an idea that has lost its meaning? Are you willing to sacrifice everything, or can you find a way to balance ambition and purpose? In the end, it's not just about achieving a goal, it's about who you become in the process, and this, perhaps, is the greatest lesson in Griffith's story. A dream isn't worth it if you can't share it with those you love. And so I ask you, are you ready to rewrite your own story?